Hey friends, so these are going to be the next two videos. I think it's video 8 and 9 in the Roadmap to Success, talking about the DNA. So I want to first talk about DNA as it pertains to, actually, maybe we'll break it into 3. So let's first talk about the DNA as it pertains to diet. So this is your DNA report that you get back from Molecular Labs. This is the DNA report from us that you download and fill out. So you'll see I have filled out, like this, you can see these are the summary pages, and I circle the ones that pertain to me. And then as you go through, it's going to help you identify what that means to you, and then what would help you get to your goal faster. So our recommendations for you so that you can put that information into something usable that you can take and extract the information from and turn that into how you build your lifestyle. So anyway, I guess we'll talk about diet first then. And when you're, and I think I kind of touched on this, but I want to do one video that's all I talk about. And then we're going to talk about exercise, and then we'll talk about, your supplements and how you amend your assessment. So obviously what people tend to gravitate towards the most when they get their report is the part that tells you your carbohydrate and fat sensitivity. So I want to break this down a little bit more. So I have, actually, this might be my daughter's. Yep. Hers is different than mine. When I looked at it, I realized that was mine. So she has a high sensitivity to carbohydrates and a low sensitivity to fats. So the best diet for her would obviously be a clean paleo keto, a low carb paleo, because she doesn't handle carbohydrates very well. She has a high likelihood for insulin resistance. I have the same high here, but I also have a high sensitivity to fats. And so for me, the carnivore diet works best, where all my fats are saturated fats. Everything is animal-based. I keep it low carb because I'm high protein, and therefore I'm very well satiated, very high in nutrients, and I don't need a lot of carbohydrates. And so that is what tends to work best for me. Now, if you have a low sensitivity to carbohydrates, then a paleo diet is going to be best for you, where you're not tracking macros, you're not really worried about carbs, but they're always going to be nutrient-dense carbohydrates, no grains, no legumes. Your carbohydrates come from fruits and vegetables, period. Okay? So the other things, though, that are really interesting in here is lactose tolerance. And I think that some people, like, for example, so she's lactose intolerant, so am I. But we don't get sick from having dairy the way that people think of lactose intolerance, where you have nausea associated with dairy. That's not it at all. Actually, I would have never considered myself to be lactose intolerant. It is also important, though, for you to understand that less than 20% of the global population continues to make the enzyme to break down dairy after age 2. So most of us are technically lactose intolerant. However, what this tells me about myself, which I already knew from cutting dairy out for so many years and then reintroducing it, is that dairy leads to severe inflammation for me. It affects my mood, it affects my behavior, it affects my joints. I joke all the time because I don't miss grains, I don't miss bread, I don't miss pasta, I don't miss any of that. And as an Italian, I know that's weird, but I don't. But I am a cheeseaholic. Like, I don't drink milk, I don't. Butter, I do have, I'll use clarified butter, ghee, I'll use grass-fed butter. But I love cheese, and so this is something I have to be very cognizant of, because I have watched my inflammation levels and my weight fluctuate when I reincorporate dairy. Okay. Next is caffeine sensitivity. So again, same thing. You think sometimes when that caffeine sensitivity is low, then it must mean that it elevates your heart rate and you have trouble sleeping. I grew up as a coffee drinker. I started drinking black coffee when I was 7 years old. It's part of our culture to have coffee after dinner and before bed. And so I never thought of myself as having a caffeine sensitivity. And when I got this back, I was also going through modifying different things. So I know that coffee affects my adrenal gland and it affects my endocrine system. So it causes my cortisol level to be haywire. And even though it doesn't elevate my heart rate and I don't notice that it affects my sleep, it does affect my sleep because I had crappy sleep most of my life. It just didn't affect my falling asleep. Also, it upset my stomach. I noticed when I gave up coffee, which, by the way, because it is a bean, technically a seed, it is high in lectins and phytates, and so it is very bad for the gut. And so many people have sensitivity to coffee in particular, same with chocolate, but don't think of themselves as having a caffeine sensitivity. The next one is alcohol. And what this is testing for is specifically the gene that causes the alcohol flush. So people who drink alcohol and their face and their neck and their chest gets all red. We see that a lot in Asian cultures. There's certain ethnicities that are more likely to have that particular gene. If you go backwards a page to where you have the endurance versus sprinter gene and how well you lose weight according to with exercise. At the very bottom, these two rows here, it's talking about susceptibility to obesity, risk of rebound weight gain once you've lost weight, risk of overeating, impulsive eating, bitter taste, and then the last one is cholesterol. And we'll talk about that another time because cholesterol needs its own video, and I hate this. This is why we gave you this, because the way they describe food and cholesterol in here is based on the food pyramid, not reality. So you go by this, but you use the information in here. Okay. Anyway, that susceptibility to obesity and risk of weight gain, as well as overeating and addictive tendencies. What I want you to think about when you look at that is, am I more prone to emotionally eat? Am I more likely to eat past the point where I feel full? Do I even notice? And go back to that intentionality. Eat to the point that you're just under full. Give yourself time to digest. Chew your food thoroughly. That's going to improve digestion. And then if you're hungry later, go back. Focus on protein first. The bulk of your meal should come from protein, then fat, then carbohydrates, because your fruits and vegetables is where your color comes from, your flavor comes from, your diversity comes from, but not the bulk of your nutrition. That is a misnomer. And so we really want to start with, again, protein is king. I say it all the time. That's going to be the basis of everything good. Fat leads to satiation. So if you find yourself overly hungry, increase your fat intake. That's going to make you feel full longer, so you don't overeat. And then use your fruits and vegetables as the garnish, right? The color, the texture, the flavor, the add-ons, not as the bulk of the meal. In terms of protein, and this is something we talk about in each class, your goal for your protein should be 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. If you are over 50, it's 1.25 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass per day. And if you are under, say 25 and or you are a competitive athlete, I would also bump it up to 1.25. Minimum protein intake for any person is never less than 0.8 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. Inside every single one of our classes, in the 6th video, I think it is all the way across the board, is exactly how to determine how much protein you should eat at each meal and total for the day so that you know. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to us and let us help you. I look forward to talking to you again in the next video where we're going to talk about exercise.